sister Samantha, is here inside the courtroom. We know she was possibly going to be called by prosecutors, and looks like that may be tomorrow, as court may end early today. So that's what we're expecting here, is learning more about the Daybell. Will any of the Daybell children be here? Will any of them testify, or any extended relatives? We'll have to wait and see.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Chanley Painter. As always, truly appreciate it. We'll let you go now. Let's bring in our guest for this hour. Joining us, criminal defense attorney Jeffrey Wolf is with us. Jeffrey, thanks for being here with me and the judge. Great to see you. Haven't seen you for a minute or two. Hope you're doing well. Let me ask you this question. First and foremost, the judge and I were talking about this, the idea that we're having difficulty listening to this testimony. We're talking about Lori's reaction. Never seems to be congruent with what's going on. And we see it time and time again, and I'm sure the jurors notice it. Do you think that's having any effect on the jury at all?
It's definitely having an effect on the jury, but I don't know if it should, quite frankly. If we all remember, this is a person who was deemed incompetent for a while to stand trial, and that delayed her trial and ultimately severed her from her ex-husband as well. And when somebody is found incompetent, what we do with them is we send them to state facilities that are going to medicate them in any way possible to get them to be lucid with it and able to be under control and understand a trial and understand who everybody is there. But what it's going to leave you with is a shell of a person. And so the emotional reactions that she's doing, they could be because of the mental illness that caused her to be incompetent in the first place, or it could be from all this medication. But a jury doesn't see that. They're not talking about the fact that she used to be incompetent in this case. What they're looking at is somebody behaving very strangely at the table. They're noticing the same things that everyone else is noticing. And I think that juries get a lot from watching a defendant. And the reason I think that is because if you do enough trials, you see that they spend half the trial watching your client.
They always do. I agree with you. And juries are savvy, so they're paying attention to all the little details. I think of everything that's going on inside the courtroom. Jeffrey, I have to ask about this because I think it is phenomenal evidence, quite frankly, for this defense, what Chanley just told us about. And that is that Lori Daybell's brother, Alex Cox, that it's his fingerprint and his palm print that are found on duct tape on the body bag that was found on JJ that he was buried in. And honestly, to me, that's reasonable doubt, unless there's other evidence they can point to putting Lori there. I think that points the finger at Alex.
It absolutely points the finger at Alex, but the problem is we've heard a lot of other testimony about other things Alex did for Lori and how he was kind of her muscle. And, you know, I have a sister. She's not getting me to do any of this kind of stuff for her. So Lori has a very loving brother, and I should say had a loving brother because he is now deceased as well. Everybody around her is dead, and a lot of the fingers on some of these deaths go from Alex to Lori. And so these prosecutors now, especially with this fingerprint and palm print evidence, have a tough job because they now have to not only point the case back to Lori and Alex, but then they have to connect Lori and Alex together, because if they don't have physical evidence putting her at the scene, they got to show she directed it, which is going to get her convicted as well under a conspiracy theory potentially.
And that leads to my next question. And Michael, you and I talked about this briefly, but I'd love to ask and then bring all of us into this conversation about, you know, she is charged with 3 counts of murder and 3 counts of conspiracy to commit murder. And I feel like the state must have known going in, well, we may not get murder, but we may get conspiracy. Do you think so or not?
Yeah, that's what the conspiracy is. It's kind of a catch-all. And Jeffrey, I'd love to get you to speak on this, because as a defense attorney, I never liked conspiracy charges. I get it. I understand why they exist, but I think they make the job of prosecutors a little bit easier. But I can say this, and I want to go to your point, and your point as well, Judge, about the fact that his palm print, or Alex's palm print, is on the bags used to bury the bodies, right? But at the end of the day, we saw testimony yesterday that I thought was devastating. When I put all the times together, or the phone calls that were made between Alex, Chad, and Lori, and the last times the children were seen and when they were believed to have been buried, boy, I think those phone calls and those times really tied together the fact that Chad and Lori were in on this. And something was going on while he was doing this that I think is fair for a jury to assume was part of a conspiracy.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Michael. We've looked at this case for years now on court TV and in this country. And I think even before they had any evidence, I think the first thing everybody was saying, I remember saying it on these airways, if you don't know where your kids are for months, you're not living in Hawaii refusing to talk to the police. It goes all the way back to that. And as you start to build upon that, and you have the phone calls, and you have the burn pit, and then you find the remains of the kids on the property that they've just left behind, there's just too much. It's a smoke and so there must be fire sort of case. And that is where conspiracy is so useful to prosecutors, because conspiracy is not about proving who pulled the trigger. It's not about proving who put the duct tape over the mouth or who buried the body or any of that. What they need to prove is that people work together and they caused the crime, and in this case, the murder of these two children and this man's ex-wife. And I think that there is just so much smoke in this case. There have been doubts about whether she could have possibly not known what happened to her children since well before the bodies were even found. This is a case where everything is just kept mounting on her, and I don't see a way out. I really don't.
Yeah, she's boxed in, and it just takes me back as they're talking about this fire pit, and they're talking about the pet cemetery, to that phone call between Chad and Lori when she's in jail. And he's like, they're on the property. And his voice has this impending doom, because he knows what's coming, because he knows where those bodies are, and she knows too. And she says, well, what do you want me to do? And what does he say? Pray.
Yep.
So I think all that stuff is really put into context, and it's fitting in well to a real puzzle here that I think the prosecution is doing a great job, because there's a lot to work with here.
There's a lot to work with, and not only is it emotional, and there's a lot of really traumatic pictures the jury has to look at, they have to then make sense of it and figure out how that conspiracy worked. And to your point, with the phone calls and the timelines, I think all of that can come together for a jury.
No question about it.
All right, Jeffrey, you're going to stay with us. Thank you for that. We know there will not be a verdict today in the best friend murder trial in Georgia because the jury has just gone home for the day. During closings today, we heard more details of the shooting. That's just ahead. And prosecutors say that a man accused in the disappearance and murder of his wife hired a private investigator to follow her in the days leading up to her death. That story coming up later.
That was in Massachusetts, by the way.
All right. Thank you, Michael.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, the Doomsday Cult Mom murder trial. A forensic science expert breaks down the testimony surrounding the autopsies of Lori Daybell's two children.
The cause of death was asphyxia by plastic bag over the head.
What those medical reports revealed and how it might affect this trial moving forward. Plus, Court TV teams are live from Boise with the very latest.
Closing Arguments with Vinny.